The crowd roared with laughter as old Mrs. Clara, frail and wobbly, stepped onto the bright stage. Her gray hair was messy, and her dress was old-fashioned. The spotlight burned her eyes. "Sing, Grandma!" A group of kids shouted, giggling. They dared her to join the town talent show as a prank, expecting her to fail. Clara's hands shook, clutching the microphone. The music started a soft, unfamiliar tune. Everyone waited for her to stumble, to make a fool of herself. But then, she sang. Her voice, clear and powerful, soared through the auditorium. The laughter stopped. Jaws dropped. The kids froze. Clara's song was magical, like a warm hug from a long-lost friend. The crowd leaned forward, tears in their eyes. As the final note faded, the room exploded into a standing ovation. But why was Clara crying? What secret was she hiding? The story paused on that cliffhanger, leaving the audience desperate to know Clara's secret. Her unexpected triumph was vivid, with the crowd shift from mockery to awe painting a gripping scene. Now, let's move to the build-up, tracing how Clara ended up on that stage. Clara was 78, living alone in a tiny house at the edge of Willowtown. Her days were quiet, filled with knitting and feeding stray cats. Nobody paid her much attention. Kids called her Creaky Clara because she walked with a cane and talked slowly. But Clara wasn't always invisible. Long ago, she had dreams, big ones. She loved singing as a young girl, but life got in the way. Her husband died young, and she raised 3 kids alone, working 2 jobs. Singing became a memory, locked away like an old photo. One day, Clara overheard kids at the town square planning the talent show. "Let's get Creaky Clara to sing," one boy, Tommy, snickered. "It'll be hilarious." The others laughed, daring each other to ask her. Clara's heart sank. She knew they were making fun of her, but something inside her stirred a spark she hadn't felt in years. Maybe this was her chance to shine, to show them she wasn't just an old lady. That night, she dusted off an old songbook and practiced, her voice shaky but determined. The next day, Tommy and his friends knocked on her door. "Hey, Clara, want to sing at the talent show?" they asked, barely hiding their giggles. Clara looked at them, her eyes sharp. "I'll do it," she said firmly. The kids were shocked but thrilled, thinking she'd embarrass herself. Clara, though, had other plans. She spent days practicing in secret, her voice growing stronger, but doubts crept in. What if she forgot the words? What if they laughed her off the stage? The talent show arrived, and Clara's nerves were on fire. The auditorium was packed. As she waited backstage, she heard the crowd cheer for dancers and magicians. Then, Tommy's voice rang out. "Next up, Clara." The kids snickered, nudging each other. Clara took a deep breath, her cane tapping as she walked into the spotlight. The music began, and all eyes were on her, waiting for a disaster. Clara stood frozen backstage, the microphone cold in her trembling hands. The crowd's chatter felt like a storm ready to swallow her. She peeked through the curtain, seeing Tommy and his friends in the front row smirking. Her heart raced. What was she thinking? She was too old, too rusty. Her voice hadn't carried a tune in decades. But then, a memory flashed her mother's voice, soft and sweet, singing her to sleep as a child. "You've got music in you, Clara," her mother used to say. That memory sparked a tiny flame of courage. She clutched her cane and whispered, "For you, Mama." As Clara stepped onto the stage, the crowd's laughter hit like a wave. "Go, Creaky Clara!" Tommy yelled, and his friends howled. Her knees wobbled, but she faced the spotlight. The music started, a slow melody she'd chosen from her old songbook. She closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and began to sing. At first, her voice was soft, wobbly, like a bird learning to fly. The crowd giggled, whispering. But then, something shifted. Her voice grew stronger, richer, filling the room with a warmth nobody expected. The giggles faded, eyes widened. Clara sang of love and loss, her words painting pictures of a life full of pain and hope. Backstage, the show's organizer, Mr. Jenkins, dropped his clipboard. He'd only let Clara perform because he thought it'd be a quick laugh. Now, he was stunned. Tommy's smirk vanished. His friends sat silent. Clara's song wasn't just beautiful, it was alive, pulling at everyone's heart. As she hit a high note, a woman in the back wiped away tears. But Clara didn't see any of this. Her eyes stayed closed, lost in the music, singing for her mother, her lost dreams, herself. The final note hung in the air. Silence. Then the crowd erupted, leaping to their feet, clapping wildly. Clara opened her eyes, shocked. Tears streamed down her face. She'd done it, but why did she feel so heavy? As she bowed, Tommy stood up, his face pale. He started walking toward the stage. Was he going to apologize or make things worse? The crowd's cheers thundered around Clara as she stood on stage, her cane trembling in her hand. Tears glistened on her cheeks, but she couldn't tell if they were from joy or something deeper. Tommy, the boy who'd mocked her, climbed onto the stage, his face no longer smug but nervous. The audience hushed, sensing something big. "Clara, I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice cracking. "We thought you'd mess up. We were wrong." The crowd gasped. Clara blinked, stunned. An apology? From Tommy? Her heart twisted part of her wanted to forgive him, but the sting of their laughter still burned. Then, Tommy did something nobody expected. He pulled a crumpled photo from his pocket and held it up. "This is my grandma," he said, his voice shaking. "She loved to sing too. She died last year. Your song, it was like hearing her again." The crowd went silent. Clara stared at the photo, her breath catching. The woman looked familiar, too familiar. "That's my sister," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. The auditorium froze. Tommy's eyes widened. "Your sister?" he gasped. "But how?" Clara's knees buckled, and she gripped her cane tighter. She hadn't seen her sister, Lila, in 50 years. They'd fought over a family secret and never spoke again. Lila had moved away, and Clara heard she'd passed, but never knew she had a grandson. Tommy was her nephew? The crowd leaned in, sensing the weight of the moment. Clara's song had brought them together, but now what? She wanted to hug Tommy, to ask a million questions, but her heart ached with old wounds. "Why didn't I know you?" she asked, tears falling. Tommy stepped closer, his eyes wet. "I didn't know either," he said. "Grandma never talked about you." The crowd was on edge, some crying, others whispering. Clara reached for Tommy's hand, but then she froze. A sharp pain shot through her chest. She gasped, clutching her heart, and collapsed onto the stage. The crowd screamed. Tommy dropped to his knees beside her. "Clara! Someone help!" Was this the end for Clara, just as she found her family? Chaos erupted in the auditorium as Clara crumpled to the stage, her cane clattering beside her. Tommy's cries cut through the crowd's screams. "Clara! Stay with me!" he shouted, kneeling by her side. His hands shook as he held hers, his earlier guilt now a heavy stone in his chest. Mr. Jenkins, the organizer, rushed forward, yelling for a doctor. A woman in the audience, a nurse named Sarah, pushed through the crowd and checked Clara's pulse. "She's breathing, but it's weak," Sarah called, her voice steady but urgent. The crowd held its breath, eyes locked on Clara's pale face. Was her moment of triumph about to end in tragedy? Paramedics burst through the doors, their equipment rattling. They lifted Clara onto a stretcher, her frail body limp. Tommy clung to her hand, tears streaming. "I didn't know you were family," he whispered. "Please don't go." The crowd parted as the paramedics rushed Clara out, sirens already wailing outside. Tommy followed, his mind racing. How could he have mocked her? And why had his grandma, Lila, never mentioned Clara? The photo in his pocket felt like a puzzle piece to a mystery he didn't understand. At the hospital, Clara lay in a white bed, tubes snaking from her arms. Her eyes fluttered open, and Tommy sat beside her, his face red from crying. "I'm sorry," he said again. Clara's lips curved into a weak smile. "You didn't know, child," she whispered. "Your grandma and I, we lost each other long ago." She paused, her breath shaky. "But your voice, it's hers." Tommy's heart skipped. He wanted to ask more, but the doctor entered, his face serious. "Clara, your heart's weak," he said. "You need rest, maybe surgery." Clara nodded, but her eyes stayed on Tommy. She had family again, but would she live to know him? As Tommy sat there, a nurse handed him an old locket from Clara's pocket. Inside was a tiny photo of two young women, Clara and Lila, smiling together. Tommy's eyes widened. What secret had torn them apart? And would Clara survive to tell him? Tommy sat by Clara's hospital bed, the locket's photo of Clara and Lila burning in his mind. The doctor returned with news. Clara's heart surgery was risky, but she was strong enough to try. Tommy held her hand, vowing to stay. Days later, Clara survived the operation, her spirit as fierce as her song. Weak but alive, she told Tommy the truth, Lila, and she had fought over a family heirloom, a silly feud that grew into decades of silence. Regret filled her voice, but Tommy's presence felt like a second chance. The town, moved by Clara's performance, rallied around her. They held a new talent show in her honor, and Tommy sang a duet with her, their voices blending like family reunited. The crowd gave another standing ovation, tears flowing. Clara, now healing, smiled at Tommy, the locket around her neck. "We're together now," she said. But as the curtains closed, Clara whispered a final secret to Tommy about Lila's last wish.